Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and in today's 16th episode of our weekly featured build discussion series, we are taking a look at Unkn0wn's Trickster, that is a hybrid based character using mind over mana, as well as taking advantage of an Orb of Storms 6-link. If you're looking for a build that can be a fast mapper but also take down bosses and even take on the new Simulacrum encounter, then look no further than Unkn0wn's Trickster. Of course, if you're interested in this build after we chat about it today and would like to try it out for yourself, all of the relevant links, including the forum guide, videos, as well as the path of building link for your own usage, are all provided down below in the video description. So without any further ado, let's get into the mechanics of what makes this particular Archmage Trickster so dang exciting to play. Unkn0wn starts off by introducing his build this way. I wanted to play something fairly survivable and fast since new content tends to be dangerous. Yeah, you can say that again in Delirium. Dangerous and rewarding. I read the new Archmage support and it seemed quite strong. Someone in a Twitch chat stream mentioned this concept, so I found some old Orb of Storm guides from a few leagues ago and I modified them to be usable with Archmage, and it has resulted in quite a strong build. Orb of Storms deals damage with tendrils of lightning that target enemies within the radius of the skill, which is increased in frequency by cast speed and range with AoE size. Orb of Storms damage is not increased with AoE damage increases. However, you can proc additional tendrils of lightning from it by casting other lightning spells while standing inside its radius. As found by players before me, the lightning spell with the shortest base cast time is Tempest Shield with a 0.25 second cast time by default, which we then scale with attack speed. So the damage calculation for Orb of Storms looks something like Orb of Storms average hit times Orb of Storms hit frequency times additional lightning spell casts per second. Now, if that has got your spider senses tingling, then let's take a look together at the pros and the cons of this build. Unkn0wn is very transparent and he doesn't try to apply any kind of hyperbole to the damage that he can get on this thing. It's got high mobility. You use Shield Charge or Frostblink in order to get around, which is really nice because Shield Charge and Frostblink don't actually share a cooldown for movement skills. So if you're looking for something that's highly mobile, but that also has got a wide range of abilities that can use to get over terrain or to get through packs, then this is going to be a great option for you. The damage on this build reaches up to 8 million Shaper DPS. Now that's in a perfect environment, so don't think you're going to league start with 8 million DPS, but if by now you've got a little bit of currency built up, you very well may be able to hit that amount of damage per second yourself. It's got 11k effective health due to its multiple different layers of stacking and mitigating damage, and then it chain clears monsters in a very fast, effective way. The cons for this build are mainly going to revolve around Orb of Storms. If you've never used Orb of Storms before, it's a spell that casts down pretty close to where your character is actually standing, so your own positioning is going to be critical in order to apply damage. You're going to have to get relatively close to enemy packs. If you're used to playing something with a bit more range, where you stay a greater distance apart from anything that could potentially be doing damage to you, then this build may indeed be a con for you. If you want to scale this thing up to its top end, then it is semi-expensive. Again, a little bit of a warning as a league starter, or if you don't have the currency to sink into this, then your damage and your gameplay is going to be affected. Also, while it's got 11k effective health, a lot of this mitigation and health pool is going to be prevention against multiple hits, and if there's a big slam that comes down on you, you don't have very much mitigation. It's not a CI build, which means it can't just laugh at chaos damage, and it doesn't have a ton of armor, which means we can't take advantage of Vol Molten Shell. So don't think this build is going to be face tanking all sorts of stuff in the game. Your positioning is going to matter. Lastly, because of the high damage on this build, we're not playing this build on any maps that have got reflect elemental damage on it or no regen, because mana is a big portion of our damage source as well as our defensive pool of health. So this build is enabled through the new Archmage support gem, and the way how things get calculated are spelled out for us by Unkn0wn in this little paragraph. I just wanted to dedicate just a moment of our discussion time to this. This is a fantastic outlay and explanation. If you are uncertain about where it is the damage is coming from Archmage, for many builds, Archmage is anywhere between 2 to 4 times multiplier onto a spell that it would be supporting. One of the biggest factors for Archmage scaling damage on your build is going to be the mana multiplier of the supported gems that are used. So this is why so many builds are using various support gems, as you might not otherwise see in combination with those traditional setups for a 6-link of a particular gem. It's because they're going for that mana multiplier that is going to impact the damage calculations and contributions that Archmage is making to boost the total damage of the skill even further. A couple pieces of gear to highlight here. First off, our Crown of the Inward Eye. Transfiguration of the soul, body, and mind are very, very key. The body less so for this particular build, but transfiguration of the soul and mind both matter a whole bunch for this particular build, since we're scaling up our mana, and that really is going to impact our overall damage increases. I'll show you that just now. So transfiguration of the soul gives you increases and reductions to maximum energy shield, also apply to spell damage at 30% of their value. Transfiguration of the body matters a little bit less. Increases and reductions to maximum life also apply to attack damage at 30% of their value. And transfiguration of the mind gives you increases and reductions to maximum mana, also apply to damage at 30% of their value. So we're taking advantage of transfiguration of the soul and transfiguration of the mind, because both of these are going to scale up based off of our energy shield investment as well as our maximum mana investment that's going to be turned then into a boost in our damage. The second big item to take a look at is the Unkn0wn's, which is a fantastic name for a unique item. I barely can say it without just cracking up in laughter. So the way how this works is enemies in your chilling areas take a percentage increased damage. Whenever you read anything in Path of Exile that says enemies take increased damage, that means that there is a whole big multiplier that gets applied. It's essentially a multiplier. It's not going to be an increase to your damage, it's an increase to their damage, which functions in the calculations of how damage is calculated in PoE as a multiplier. So this is a big, big boost into our damage. The trick is making sure that enemies are in a chilled area in order to take that increased damage and scale up our lightning damage from what is already strong amounts of damage to utterly Arnold levels of strength in its damage scaling. The way how we're going to effectively and efficiently be chilling enemies consistently is through the use of a craft on a rare wand, which reads trigger a socketed spell when you use a skill. Mind you that the trigger of a socketed spell doesn't actually need to be the skill sharing the wand itself. So in other words, you can put a whole bunch of skills into the wand that you won't regularly be casting, because that socketed spell is going to get triggered when you use something that's maybe put into your 6-link, for instance. So Cold Snap is going to fire off when you're using another skill, and that Cold Snap is going to create a burst of an area that creates chilled ground, which then interacts with Unkn0wn's, making enemies in that chilled area take a whole bunch of increased lightning damage, and don't worry, because they won't be around for very long. This means that you can shield charge into a pack of enemies, and then as soon as you drop that Orb of Storms, boom, they're in a chilled area, and everything inside the radius of your Orb of Storms is going to be taking increased lightning damage and won't survive for very long at all. Lastly, for items is the Choir of Storm, which is fantastic in terms of damage increase. It gives you increased lightning damage, increased maximum mana, and then also your critical strike chance is increased by lightning resistance, which never hurts. Choir of the Storms also has an innate spell that it will cast when you actually hit with a critical strike. It is essentially a Herald of Thunder style lightning hit that applies massive amounts of damage to the target that it is actually hit by. It is a level 20 version of this particular gem, and so you can see on the skill progression based on this on the wiki page at level 20, it's dealing 552 to 1657 lightning damage to an enemy whenever you crit. This is additional damage that's going to come down from the Choir of Storms amulet that you've got built in onto your character. It is a massive amount of bonus damage that your build is going to be able to put out. Damage upon damage upon damage. This entire build is just layers of damage. Unknown has built 2 different passive trees for us to take advantage of. One of them is at level 93 and then another is at level 60. He's also got a third alternative, or rather a second alternative path of building, but a third tree that's set at level 94 with top, and gear. So you can essentially choose how you want to play this build. You can choose as you're leveling how it is that you want to fill out your tree, and then as you get up into the 90s, how it is that you're going to fill out your tree as you push further and further into maps, and then as you expend more and more currency into the build, how it is that you're going to transition from lower end items that you're only able to self-find or self-purchase into higher end items that you are able to either self-craft with massive amounts of currency or find on your own or purchase off of the market. Of course, this is a mind over matter build, and so that is going to be very important for us to get to as soon as possible, because our mana is going to be both a source of damage and a source of extending our life pool. So we're going to want to make our way over to mind over matter relatively soonish as we are leveling through the 10x story campaign. When it comes to new notables that we've got now available in 3.10 Delirium League, Unknown recommends that we use a jewel similar to this, the Rapture Cut Small Cluster Jewel. You'll notice he doesn't spend a lot of passive points on extending out his tree and customizing it with a whole bunch of notables. There certainly are a lot of notables out there to choose from that you could increase your damage with, but for this particular build, Unknown recommends that we use Scintillating Idea, which gives us a 20% increase to our maximum mana and allows for our damage to penetrate 5% of lightning resistance. For your Ascendancy choice, you go Trickster, which means a whole bunch of you out there that either league started with maybe, let's say, a Miner or a Saboteur and you're looking to swap over, or if you league started with an ED Contagion build and you just want to swap over to something else, then this would save you the trouble of leveling all the way up with a new character fresh. We're going to start by grabbing Weave the Arcane, which is absolutely brilliant. The way how Unknown has put it, essentially Orb of Storms is going to take up a little bit more than 60% of our mana every time we cast it, and since our mana is both our source of damage and a source of effective life, we need to be able to recover it very, very quickly. Well, because we are casting at such a high rate using Tempest Shield, it means that we have got a massive chance for us to recover the vast majority of our mana as soon as we drop down or shield charge and then drop down Orb of Storms into a pack and then begin casting as quickly as possible, once again, our Tempest Shield. On top of this, you get 6% reduced damage taken for 4 seconds after spending a total of 200 mana. We are spending that amount of mana, no problem. And then on top of that, we're getting 25% increased mana from Weave the Arcane. Everything that you could want on an Archmage character is built into Weave the Arcane, except for an old geriatric man screaming about running out of mana or something. Patient Reaper is an option for you to grab because it gives you a big percentage of your mana back on kill, along with life and energy shield, but this is by far going to be the least important of your Ascendancy options. More important is going to be Ghost Dance, which gives you chance to evade, as well as Ghost Shrouds, and then of course Escape Artists, which gives you a whole bunch of great abilities like cannot be stunned while you have Ghost Shrouds. Ghost Shrouds are incredibly important for characters that are not going to rely on armor but are going to rely on evasion and dodge chance in order to mitigate the damage that is coming in. If you're not stunned, you're not going to be staying in one place for you to get hit and killed by those one-shots that are present in Delirium or from bosses in maps. And so as long as you can stay mobile and avoid getting stunned, which Escape Artist allows you to do, and as long as you can keep your Ghost Shrouds up, you're going to be healthy and happy as you burst down whatever content it is that you seek to pursue. You will notice on the tree that Unknown has recommended we use 3 Fevered Minds, which gives us a massive increased mana cost to our skills, which again helps with Archmage and boosting our damage. And of course, it also gives us even more layers of spell damage the more Fevered Minds you can actually stack on top of one another. These are roughly 50 chaos right now in Delirium League. If it's not Delirium League, I'm sorry, then this is a dated video, but that's where they're at presently, and so make sure you grab some while you can, because they are going to go like hotcakes once Archmage starts to take over the meta. Clear Mind is a jewel that is limited to only 1, but while you have no mana reserve, you get a bunch of increased spell damage, and you've also got on top of that a bunch of increased mana regeneration rate. Now, between our Ascendancy and all of the various mechanics that we've got for recovering mana, we're probably going to be fine in between here and there, but it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of increased mana regeneration rate on a flat basis, as well as increasing our spell damage with no mana being reserved, and we don't have any mana that's reserved on this particular build. If you really do want to reserve some mana, then what you can do is you can actually use a Essence Worm that will allow you to put one aura inside that particular ring socket. It gives +2 levels to that particular affected aura gem, and then away you go. It doesn't have to reserve any mana while it's socketed in there. I use Wrath on my build because it increases your lightning spell damage that you deal, but there are plenty of other auras out there that might be beneficial to you, like increasing your crit rate, or even a high level clarity if you really need to increase your mana regen. For Unkn0wn, his Orb of Storms is set up on a 5-link because he is of course using an Eternity Shroud and his chess piece. So he's got Orb of Storms linked with Energy Leech, Chain, Archmage support, and then Lightning Penetration. His other augmenting abilities are going to be Wave of Conviction in order to apply exposure, along with Tempest Shield in order to proc as many of those lightning bolts to come off of Orb of Storms as possible. A couple of great defensive options for you are Vol Haste, Vol Grace, Vol Discipline, and Arcane Cloak. All of them, of course, are going to be used in their Vol form only because we once again do not want to reserve any mana lest we lose a whole bunch of damage and effective life pool either from MOM or from scaling up the flat amount of mana that we are using from Archmage support. Well, thanks so much for participating in today's discussion. I look forward to reading all of your comments and thoughts down below about how you could improve or play upon or maybe play alongside an Archmage Orb of Storm hybrid MOM trickster like the one that Unkn0wn has put together for us. If, of course, you've got suggestions or have discovered that I've made an error in this presentation, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. Unkn0wn is incredibly responsive both on his YouTube channel as well as on his forum posting, so you can absolutely get in touch with this particular build guide creator as he's made himself available via YouTube and via the forums. Would highly recommend, if you've got questions for him, to reach out to him through those couple of avenues that he's made himself available to. Thanks so much for watching. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters, and I hope today is the day a Mirror of Calandra drops for you while you're trying out an Archmage Orb of Storms trickster.
Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.